Hello, we're back. Welcome back to the Early Bar Football Podcast. Look, we've got a bit of a big scene tonight. The last few ones have been quite intimate, only a couple of people, and now I'm back, and now Ting's not here. Shocking! Can't believe it. Gutted, devastated. Josh Leafy might be here. It's the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers. Forget like Marvel films. Forget post-credit scenes or whatever. I think actually that's what we might have tonight. It might be like we finish and then the post-credit scene is that Leif just shows up. His computer actually starts working. But we are back, joined by Chrissy, Ash, Pristinda Jaya Jaya, which always tickles me because that is a Gavin and Stacey reference from what, 2010?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like 11 years old at this point, which we think is actually very current. We're like, this is very current. It's a great reference, but we're dating ourselves immediately. And joined by Lynchy as well. Got plenty to talk about. So we'll start off talking about the Premier League. Of course, the Premier League's back finally. International break is over. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if it's like a sign of not being like patriotic or not like, loving your country, but I just can't stand international football. I just find it so dull and so boring and it just makes me sad.
We had this issue when Tang, Barnes and myself did a pod in the week. We were like, should we talk about the international break? Yeah, we probably should. Did anyone watch the England game? No. It's just a waste of time. It's just, like you say, boring.
It is so boring. And like I saw even like some United fans were like, oh, Jadon Sancho played really well for England against Andorra. He should play at the weekend. It's like he's playing against someone who's like 41 years old from Andorra. Like,
that was unreal.
Oh, great. Amazing. But yeah, we'll start talking about the Premier League. Premier League's back. Chrissy, are there any games that stand out to yourself at the weekend that you're looking forward to?
To be fair, yes, there is. To answer your question in a simple way, I apologies if I don't sound as good as I usually do. I do have a bit of a cold and that, but I think the game that stands out for me tomorrow, and I might be stealing Ed's thunder here because I am talking about the Liverpool game tomorrow, which is Watford versus Liverpool at Vicarage Road. Obviously, with all the talk of Newcastle and that, it's sort of gone a little bit under the radar that obviously Watford are going into this game with a new manager, that of Claudio Ranieri. And it's interesting because obviously last time at Vicarage Road, Ed, do you remember what happened last time Liverpool went away to Vicarage Road?
No, erased from memory.
I remind you, it was a 3-0 loss. It was Watford 3, Liverpool 0. It was an Ismail Assar masterclass.
That was 12 managers ago.
Yeah, Watford. Yeah. It was a Nigel Pearson, obviously master plan against Jurgen Klopp. But I think it will be an interesting game, just for the fact, obviously, it's great to have King Claudio back in the Prem. I mean, he's already done an amazing sort of like press conference / interview where he's like, I feel really young. I want to break Roy Hodgson's managerial record. I doubt he's going to do it at Watford because I know Barnes mentioned when Ranieri first joined one of the episodes of this pod that Ranieri's probably one of the favourites to lose his job already and that. But yeah, obviously it's going to be interesting. Liverpool going to be without Alisson and Fabinho. Obviously they played last night or probably early hours of this morning, like British time anyway, for Brazil and that. So it'll be interesting if either they go Kelleher or, which I'm guessing Ed's going to hope they play Kelleher.
They will, 100%. Not playing that other moron.
What? They won't play the old Spanish clown Adrian and that. He might have a good game and that, but like it's interesting because obviously Ranieri plays sort of I know he has been known as the Tinker Man, but from like his Leicester days, and he sort of like brought that on, that he does play a bit of a pragmatic 4-4-2, and I think like his system might get the best out of Ismail Assar, sort of like it did for Riyad Mahrez in a way for Leicester. I think it might get the best out of him, and it will definitely suit like Watford counter-attacking with the amount of pace they have up front. Unfortunately for Watford, though, they have lots of injuries in their central defence. I think they're only going in with 2 fit centre-halves. I know one's that Trooster Kong, and I'm sorry, Watford fans, I don't know many of your other players and that. And all right, I think Liverpool will be out without Firmino as well, but I think Jota, obviously, to be honest, I feel Jota's better than Firmino anyway. So I think Liverpool will have a bit too much, but I think it's just great to see King Claudio back in the Prem again.
It's the Claudio Ranieri one's weird to me because everyone, like you said, is happy to see him back, and they talk about the Leicester thing again. Just don't mention that he was manager of Fulham in the Premier League after that, which no one's talking about. No one's talking about he came back to Fulham and it was awful. Like, they were terrible. And don't get me wrong, Fulham were just like a mess that year. But everyone's going, I tell you what, maybe he comes back, Leicester City, and it's like, Fulham? No, we're not going to talk about that.
Just a quick one on Fulham, and obviously you're like this. Obviously, from your wrestling channel, obviously Tony Khan, obviously he owns Jackson AEW, sorry, but he also owns Jacksonville Jaguars, and I've seen that Jacksonville Jaguars have lost their last 19 games in a row.
Yeah, it's like a record. It's the worst. I think it's like the worst in NFL history. And in fairness, and when they talk about like Fulham as well, like there's this thing like the Fulham fans don't really like them that much because like, you know, Fulham doing great. They're like the biggest yo-yo side ever. So it must be really frustrating for me, like even as a United fan, like I can tolerate the Glazers like being involved in say like the Buccaneers or whatever, because they're kind of split up. Like I can't remember which one, it might be Joel Glazer kind of focuses on the Buccaneers. I think Avram Glazer kind of focuses more on United, all that kind of stuff. If I saw my director of football, who is John Murtaugh at Manchester United, my director of football was running a wrestling promotion in America, I'd lose my mind. I'd be like, what is this guy doing? Can you not like focus on the club? That's like a really important job. So certainly is interesting with that. Barnes, I know you love to talk about Burnley. So do you want to talk about Burnley, Man City?
I don't. I'm going to move that on. I'll move that on to Ed and Lynchy. They can talk about the great fixture, which I'm sure it will be. It definitely won't be a 5-0 Man City thrashing like it is every single year in, year out. I do want to mention one more thing on Tony Khan. Was he the guy who made a Michael Jackson statue outside the stadium?
That was Mohammed Al Fayed, I think.
Yeah, that was the owner before the Khans took over.
Yeah,
apologies, Tony Khan. False accusation.
Yeah. I think they pulled that down because that was yesterday. Why?
That's an awful idea.
Yeah.
On the Watford-Liverpool game as well, I think the Claudio Ranieri appointments, it's just so funny. Like, you get the sort of club in Watford who sack their managers for fun, and they employ the biggest journeyman manager of like all time. I think he's had 20 different clubs during his managerial career. Now he's at Watford, and you just know it's going to be 21 clubs by the end of this season when he no doubt goes to manage someone else when Watford are dwelling in the relegation zone towards the end of the season. Again, though, I would like to pick out that before we go on to the rest, it's probably not the most interesting game, but I have a sneaking feeling that Norwich City are going to get their first 3 points of the season. They're at home to Brighton, and this is just a feeling.
Cool.
You know when a team has been too good, so you feel they're going to drop points? I feel like Brighton are in that stage. They've been too good so far this season, and Norwich have been too rubbish.
I was going to say, it's definitely not Norwich.
It's not Norwich. I think they're going to win.
It's just been too good. Norwich.
If this Norwich team's been too good, then they're in deep trouble. But no, I think they're going to win this week. So big up Norwich. I think, mine and Chris's prediction might be back on, flying up the league after they smashed Brighton at the weekend.
Sorry, before we move on, has anyone ever said that phrase, big up Norwich? I don't think that's ever come out of anyone's mouth.
Not even the Norwich fans.
Delia Smith
not even her. She just gets on the pitch, half cut and starts screaming, "Where are you?" I mean, the thing is, but watching that back, when I was like younger, I just assumed she was a really passionate, like she was the owner, or one of the owners of Norwich. She was just really passionate. You watch it back, she's larruped. She's absolutely off her face. And I don't know about you. Yeah, I've never, ever had so much to drink that I walked onto a football pitch and started berating a stadium full of people.
Well, that's the thing, Owen. If you did it, you'd get arrested and £1,000 fine.
Wow, it'd be, Carrow, and it wouldn't be Carrow Road. It'd be something far bigger, far more spectacular. I'm not doing it, Carrow Road. Come on, do me a favour. Ed, obviously Liverpool. We're talking about Liverpool when it comes to Watford. Alisson. It's a miss, isn't it? Surely Adriana isn't going to play. I mean, what's just your feelings on the game tomorrow anyway?
No, I think, both Alisson and Fabinho are going to be big misses. They're both pretty crucial to the team. Afternoon. Good evening, Josh Lathey.
Hey.
Welcome.
Sorry,
you can wait your bloody turn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're big misses.
Ed's saying that he was like 10 minutes late.
Yeah, big misses. I'm really hoping Kelleher's going to be in goal, not Adrian, because it's one of those fixtures where already I'm nervous. I do not need Adrian being in goal to just add fuel to that fire. It's the early kickoff, notoriously a fixture where like the big teams don't do as well in early kickoffs. Watford as well are becoming a little bit of a bogey team. They're really hit or miss for Liverpool. Either we annihilate them or we lose. There's no in between. And it's Ranieri's first game, so he's got absolutely nothing to lose. I'm very cautiously optimistic, because like Chris said, Watford have got hardly any centre halves at the minute. But yeah, it could all go pear-shaped. So I think I'll be watching that one through my fingers.
Nice. I think Liverpool go through them. I think Liverpool batter them. I can see just like Ranieri going in and just Watford 15-20 minutes not having a clue what they're going to be meant to be doing. They're sort of, you know one of those ones where they're like, this is a mess, and Liverpool are 3-0 up, or Liverpool have had so many chances. I think Liverpool are going to smash them. Lynchy, of course, it's actually, you've got to wait all the way till Monday to watch Arsenal play Crystal Palace at home. Palace, I'll hold my hands up. I said that I thought Patrick Vieira was a bad appointment. They're not doing too badly, are they? You know, they're not doing too badly. Do you think it's going to be a difficult game? This would be one of those games with Arsenal, wouldn't it? That you really don't know. You really don't know what could happen there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Palace, a good win against Tottenham a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Good comeback against Leicester. I mean, I think it is going to be a tough game. I expect them to go there, and Arsenal find it quite hard to break them down. I mean, I know Liverpool beat them 3-0, but I feel like that game wasn't exactly a 3-0 when they went away to Anfield. I feel like they played quite well. So definitely I'm expecting a tough game. Other fixtures of the weekend. I feel like this weekend's got quite a lot of fixtures, quite hard to call. I think the Leicester Man United one's quite an interesting one. Everton, West Ham. And I feel like Newcastle against Spurs. I think even though Steve Bruce is going to be there, obviously for his 1000th game, I feel like that could be a tough one for Tottenham. I feel like St James's Park, I'm assuming it'll probably be sold out with the new owners coming in now. The atmosphere is going to be electric there, I feel. And I feel like Tottenham could slip up. I mean, they've been so hit and miss this season, so even though Newcastle haven't got any of those big new signings yet, the players could be really up for it. They got a point to prove. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of interesting fixtures this weekend.
Lost 3 of their last 5, haven't they, Tottenham? They're going backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got the lowest running stats in the league. Apparently under Pochettino, they had the highest, and now under Nuno, they've got the lowest. Which is just, that just sums up Dele Alli, doesn't it? Perfect. He loves that tactic. He loves it. Oh, great. I don't have to move. I can just do nothing. The Newcastle one's interesting, though, because I think, like you said, the atmosphere is going to be obviously electric. But with everything that's been going on, like, they have to realize that actually nothing actually has changed between the time that before they got taken over and now. They still have the same manager, still have the same squad. Yes, the atmosphere is going to be great, but if they think they're going to play Tottenham, and they're going to be playing all this really snappy football, they got another thing coming. So even between now, obviously once the new coach comes in, which he will, but between now and the January transfer window, it's still going to be like really edgy stuff at Newcastle. There's no doubt about it. Leif, let's talk about Man United for our sins. Yeah. How do you feel tomorrow? Tomorrow, obviously, is the beginning of I think it's 10 massive games for Manchester United. Pretty much anyone that's a big team, Man United have to play over the course of the next.
I thought you were going to say it's the beginning of the end for Ollie then.
I think it might be.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it the beginning of the end? But this is the thing, and like Leif will probably say that Man United fans will tell you that these are the types of games that he tends to win. Like he does tend to, every time we play a big team, it'll be a draw, be a win, or whatever. Do you see it as the beginning of the end? How do you see the one tomorrow?
Oh, I do see it as the beginning of the end. Like you are right, he does seem to pull out the results when he needs them. But without Varane, without Maguire, without Cavani this weekend as well, I think Cavani's been one of our best players when he's come on. I think the only silver lining is I don't think Fred can play. Yeah, thank God. Praise the Lord. Get him out of my club. I'm not too optimistic. I don't think Leicester are on great form either. So I could see it being a draw. I could see it being a 0-0 draw, a boring game. I can't see us. But then again, I can't see us not conceding. We've been conceded with Varane and Maguire, so with potentially Lindelof and Bailly who might be there, it could be a bad game for us. I
think Vardy's the key, isn't he? He's the only player at Leicester that's doing anything this year. Without him, they'd be way down the bottom of the league. So, and it's at the King Power as well, so I'm sure that'd be rocking. I could see it being Yeah, I could see it being a score draw.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
United's away record's very good, though, isn't it?
It is. What's it?
Yeah,
30
like-
games now.
Yeah.
I would back Ollie in this personally. I think Man United will win. I think you say Manchester United without their centre backs. Well, Leicester City have been without their best centre back, or arguably Wesley Fofana this whole season. They look really poor defensively. Whereas I think, although obviously Lindelof and Bailly aren't as good as
But
Varane and Maguire,
We look poor
I think
with
they'll
our
do
centre
well.
backs.
That's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
thing, isn't it?
That's what I mean.
That's the
So-
thing, because we've been conceding
make that
goals
much
anyway.
difference?
Yeah.
Exactly.
True.
So you don't know. I think that what will be interesting about it is that when we have Maguire and Varane, who are obviously our best centre backs, Ollie still was like, "I've got to play McTominay and Fred because I've got to,
Yeah,
I've got to
that was
protect
the big
them."
thing
But
before.
now he's definitely going to protect them. So what's
Yeah,
he going to do now?
That was the big thing
And Fred,
before.
obviously, Fred isn't going to play tomorrow, so you're not going to have Pogba out on the left. Pogba would have to play in midfield. But I tell you what, I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked if you went with like Matic and McTominay and
Oh,
put
yeah.
Pogba on the
I was
bench.
just going to
No,
say,
I
I would
think
not be
so,
shocked at all.
I think that's probably more likely.
it just goes
Which
six
is, which
players.
is, which is not
Yeah, I
very.
wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting that that's more likely than playing someone like Pogba in the centre back. At least it's
But
not Fred.
When it comes to United, though, Leif, obviously, Solskjaer said in his press conference today that Rashford is in the squad. Do you think Rashford is going to start tomorrow? I mean, he did play. No. He played 60 minutes against Blackburn, scored twice. Has had about nearly a couple of weeks now of full contact training. Do you reckon he's going to start tomorrow?
I don't think he'll start, no, but I think he'll feature. Especially if I can't see him starting after being out for that long. I think he'll feature. I think he'll hold him on the bench. So who do you think he'll start then as free?
Well, you'll go with obviously Bruno as the 10, right? It'll be Greenwood or Sancho.
Yeah.
I reckon he probably might go with Greenwood, and then on the left, I think he'll go Rashford. Even though Martial scored and started last time,
yeah, but he's crap.
Put it this way: Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played Scott McTominay. He brought Scott McTominay on when he needed groin surgery. He like that sort of stuff doesn't factor into it. You know, it just doesn't. He benched Cristiano Ronaldo last game. Who knows at this point? And I always say that. I get my messages I get messages the day of the game. They'll be like, "Oh, what do you think today?" And I'll be like, "I don't know." I have no idea what Manchester United's going to show up. Not a clue.
That's the problem. There doesn't seem to be any method behind it. That's why I think a lot of United fans are getting disgruntled. There's no sort of pattern of play when we're playing. There's no identity, and there doesn't seem to be any plan. And when we're going through games, I mean, we're either waiting too late to make subs, or we're making a wrong or just weird subs.
You're right after half time.
Yeah,
bring them on when we were winning. It's like,
I know,
we don't need to.
We're making 2 changes. We won a lot. Yeah, so I think that's what's making a lot of United fans disgruntled, including myself. It's just a lack of any sort of method to the madness that's going on. It's just frustrating to watch at times.
Yeah, I think also as well, the interesting thing with United is that so people were a bit upset because like Mike Phelan got a new 3-year contract and Kieran McKenna and Michael Carrick that's what I mean. That's what I said. Like people were like, I can't believe that. It's like, I mean, nothing. If we lose these next 10 games and we're out of the Champions League, they'll all be gone.
Yeah,
they'll all be gone. Like, what if contracts meant anything anyway? You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the thing there. We did talk about Steve Bruce briefly, but we'll talk about him a bit more in depth here. Go back to you, Chrissy. Were you surprised to see Brucey get his 1,000th game in management? Is it management or is it Premier League? It's got to be management, right? It's management in general. I was going to say. Were you surprised to see him get the opportunity to have the 1,000th game?
Oh, absolutely. I was very surprised. I would have thought like these owners would have come in. Obviously, they obviously would have seen that poll where 95% of the Newcastle fans wanted Steve Bruce gone. But I think there's a bit more to it behind the scenes, what's been said. Because I know Bruce has sort of like brushed it under the carpet in his press conference today saying, I've only spoken to them for like 10 minutes and such. But I reckon they probably would have given him an ultimatum saying, look, we'll give you, I know, say 5 games, 5-10 games, and we want you to be on this many points in this position, and we want you to play attacking football, and if you don't deliver that, then sorry, you're off. And not only that, like he has got a contract to the end of the year, so they might even say, look, we'll give you to this year to prove us wrong. But I was very surprised in that because I mean, if it was Josh Leahy managing this Newcastle team, if it was Leahy on FM, he would have been sacked.
Oh yeah,
because he wouldn't have made the points target.
I knew that's what I was going. That was going when you were going on about that. I knew that's where it was going.
The points target. I didn't see that coming actually. In fairness.
As soon as that's why I smiled. You're a disgrace.
Well, it happened to you at Nottingham Forest, didn't it, Leif, on
Did it?
FM 21?
Well, carry on. We're going off subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I was very surprised in that, but in a way, fair play to him, and that obviously 1,000 games in charge. I wouldn't say he's got the best records when I think he's got only a foot over a 30% win ratio in that sort of time in that, but I'm sure his fan club,
terrible.
It is. But his fan club over at Talk Sport think he's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, let's not get on that Talk Sport
again. Like Jim White, Steve Bruce is amazing. Why did they get rid of him? Come on.
I saw the one when it was like, who else could do a better job than what he's doing right now? I mean, the relegation zone. He's doing a good job.
Surely a lot of people won a game. They won a game. They've got. That's the thing. Like Newcastle generally have exciting players as well, like Saint Maximan, Almiron, Callum Wilson when he's fit. It's like they could play better stuff. It's just
you're forgetting Isaac Hayden. Very exciting player.
Arsenal legend, that is. I wouldn't say John Joe Shelby because he got absolutely destroyed by Oxford in 2016 when he still playing.
I thought you were going to say Harry Potter. He got absolutely destroyed by Gryffindor.
Yeah. 3 points to Gryffindor or whatever you say for the whole Quidditch stuff. And that's it. Back on topic.
Pretending like he doesn't know the whole Quidditch stuff.
Yeah, with the Quidditch thing. Do they with the snitch?
Can we? Yeah, but no, I'm very surprised that Steve Bruce has made it to his 1,000th game. But fair play to him.
Yeah,
I think when it comes to Steve Bruce, I think it's purely sentimental. I think Newcastle just don't want to be seen as the club that gets rid of a guy when he's one game away from 1,000 games. I think they realise in the grand scheme of things, irrespective of the result, probably doesn't matter over the weekend. And on top of that, I just think they haven't figured out who they want to bring in. If they'd have got someone signed at this point, that person would be the manager right now. That would be it. They'd get Steve Bruce out. And I saw Steve Bruce say some things, criticize the media and all this kind of stuff. The guy's making 8 mil to get sacked. He's going to make 8 million to get sacked. So I think he's fine. People
that's a lot of kebabs.
Say whatever you want.
A lot of kebabs, right. Too many kebabs.
Exactly. So he'd be sprinting way faster than he is on FIFA. 8 mil worth of kebabs.
That video freaks me out, man.
Can they get that? Can they get him just sprinting to just a giant kebab? That's the end goal. What he's running towards. Would be tremendous. Barnes, what do you think? Do you think that it's sentimental, or do you think that a bit like Chrissy, that maybe it's a case of Newcastle going, look, we'll give you 5 games, see if you can turn it around a little bit?
It's 100% not sentimental. You think this new Saudi PIF will come in and go, Steve Bruce, what a bloke. Let's just give him his 1,000th game. It's got nothing to do with that. The reason why they haven't sacked him is simply because they haven't, like you said, Owen, haven't found another manager to replace him. I mean, he's pretty much a caretaker manager right now, Steve Bruce. He's going to be out of there the minute they find someone better in that role. I mean, I've heard Lucien Favre mentioned. I'm not sure. Maybe they're already negotiating with him already. Lampard's been mentioned. I think there's a few managers like Rafa Benitez already ruled themselves out. So I think it's just a matter of time for Bruce. The writing's on the wall. But I think in terms of himself personally, obviously, he's going to be pleased to get that 1,000th game. But the writing's on the wall for him. He is going. And like me and Ed discussed, I think it is completely the right thing to do. His record at Newcastle is horrendous, and that's not just this season, that's throughout the seasons. And on top of that, he probably plays one of the most boring styles of football in the Premier League with, as Chris said, he's got exciting players there. There isn't really too many excuses. They're not as bad as their position would suggest in terms of their playing squad. So, yeah, Bruce is a goner, but as like Chris said, well done, Steve Bruce, on reaching his 1,000 games.
Leif, who do you think is going to be the person to come in and replace him? Like Barnes just said there have been some names. Lucien Favre, to me, is a weird one, considering he turned down, was it the Palace job? Because he didn't want to come to England. And suddenly, I will come to him for a lot of money. Yeah. Frank Lampard, again, that's
I don't think that's a massive
really
step up.
interesting one.
Is it really?
An interesting one. The Lampard one is a strange one for me, considering that
Gerrard, I've seen
Gerrard as well. The Lampard one's weird to me. I don't know what you think, because he infamously had a big budget at Chelsea, and he didn't get those players to mesh. Now, obviously, I don't think Frank Lampard was actually signing those players at Chelsea. I think it's a case of he just got given players. We're signing, Havertz. We're signing whoever it may be. But it didn't work out there. So who's to say that it would work out at Newcastle? I mean, what do you think? Who do you think is going to replace Steve Bruce as the manager?
I think it's hard to call right now. I think that with the amount of money they've got, it could be there's numerous names that could be in that hat. One thing I would say is that I'm not a massive fan of Newcastle fans and Newcastle in general. Always thought they were a bigger club than what they are, which they probably are now, which is a shame. But when they have a point with Steve Bruce, when people like on TalkSport are saying about Steve Bruce and give him a chance, it's like, so Newcastle are going to be this big club with this big budget now. Any of you guys who support Arsenal, Liverpool, and whoever, would you want Steve Bruce as your manager? Do you want Steve Bruce with a £190 million budget?
No,
Jesus, come on.
You look at his go on, Leif.
Yeah, the 30% win percentage, if Steve Bruce is, like Ash said, he is a caretaker manager right now. And you were saying about you giving it big time in the press earlier, you're going, mate, chill out. Stop giving it big time. Yeah. You got it wrong. All right, you might have got it wrong by about 2 months, but you're going to go.
Didn't expect me to show up, did you? Yeah. Are you going to get sacked tomorrow?
I think they need to get a manager who has had experience with big budgets, because they're going to have a huge budget. So someone like Gerrard I don't think would fit the bill personally, because Rangers don't have a big budget in Scotland.
But can they even attract a big manager who can manage a big budget if you don't really know how it's going to play out?
I think that's what they need to aim for. If they can get, money talks, like you said. If they can attract someone who's available right now, for example, who's spent.
Even if they got a Lampard, even if they got a Lampard in, I would be going into that job probably knowing that, probably 18 months, I might not be here. Because if we get to the top 4, that's when they'll be able to attract a massive manager, and I'll probably be gone. You know what I mean?
True.
The Conte one's interesting when people go, oh yeah, Conte could come in, but rightfully so. A lot of people have said, would he come in now? And
this next manager's a stopgap. You're right. It's a stopgap to the next big one. It's someone who's better than Steve Bruce, but isn't as big as what the next going to get. The next sort of Guardiola, whatever. To that sort of standard.
Will be available soon.
Yeah. Give it a couple of months.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
But it's hard to call, really. I think hard to call.
Priest, what do you think? Do you think, first of all, you're surprised that Steve Bruce made it to the 1,000th game? And I know this has been spoke about quite a lot, but who do you think is going to come in to replace him? Because I don't think those odds change every day, don't they? The other day it was Frank Lampard is going to be the guy, and now it's I don't know. I don't think they know.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's the only reason he's made it to 1,000 games is because, like we've said, they haven't made a decision yet. I like that they're biding their time, but it also shows just how difficult a decision this is, because it's a massive job. If they want to be pushing for the title, challenging that top 6 or big 6 as they're called, it's a big job. If you've got 190 million to spend, where do you start? And it's not just on the pitch either. We talked about in the week on the podcast, it's bigger than that. It's the infrastructure, it's the training ground, it's the youth system, because they lose a lot of young players at Newcastle. You think of Michael Carrick, Alan Shearer had to leave at one point. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent that slips through the cracks, so they need a decent academy underneath them. Going back to Steve Bruce, we've all said it. He's not the manager to take you from being in the relegation zone to being in the top 6, is he? You look at his career as a whole.
It's not Newcastle, they're just at the bottom because we just didn't have the money. No, I'm pretty sure Steve Bruce is part of that problem.
Exactly, exactly. I think the biggest job he's had is Villa, and he balls that up. He's very good at taking teams from the Championship to the Premier League, keeping them there for a year or two, and then it falls away.
Villa, big job.
Well, at the time. He's had Hull, he's had Villa, Birmingham City, I think, as well.
Sunderland.
He was interviewed for the England job. Remember that as well?
Was he?
In 2016. Yeah.
Oh,
2016.
Yes. With the,
It was Sam Allardyce and Steve Bruce. Can you imagine that? With the squad we got now, wow. It was Sam Allardyce or Steve Bruce. People complain about Southgate. I do, but oh my goodness,
could have been a lot worse.
So and I think the other thing is there there's no standout candidate, is there? We've just named a couple there, and they've all got issues with them. I agree. I don't think it's the right job for somebody like Steven Gerrard. I think he needs to stick at Rangers for a bit longer. Frank Lampard. I think the thing with Frank Lampard is this would be a little bit of a make or break for him. I think he did well at Derby. He had a go at Chelsea. I think he was a little bit of a stopgap at Chelsea because they had a transfer embargo, so nobody would want that job, and they needed somebody that the fans weren't going to turn on. He then got a transfer budget and couldn't, like you said, couldn't get the players to gel. If he then goes to Newcastle with 190 million to spend in January and it doesn't go well, like people have been saying in the media and on Twitter and stuff, this is like a career mode as a managerial job. You cannot get a better scenario than this, and if it goes wrong, he's only young, and this could really hinder the rest of his career. So it is such a tricky one. It's a difficult appointment. I can't wait to see how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, it does feel like a drama, doesn't it? And like
It
you said,
reminds me of Chelsea with Mourinho, doesn't
Back
it?
in the day, yeah.
But even that, like, this is the weird thing with it, is that like a lot of people, because like, you know, when people go, oh, just because they got the money doesn't mean they're going to be successful. It's like, yeah, they are. They are going to be successful. Yeah. Like history tells us that they will be successful. I mean, you know, Chelsea did it in only a few years. Man City did it. They got taken over in 2008. They won the league in 2012. It took them 4 years. Like, you know, it didn't take a long amount of time. Now, obviously, like this season, it's not going to happen with Newcastle. I'm interested to see who they bring in January, because even those players they bring in January, they're almost a stopgap anyway, you know, because the big players will come next summer. Everything just feels like patchwork right now until they can get to the summer, make sure they're in the league, keep the right, you know, the manager, the players. Okay.
Will they come next summer, do you reckon? Because if they're not achieving Champions League football, that was a benefit with Chelsea when Mourinho took over, and Ranieri had just got them into Europe, Chelsea, and they were sort of ready to attract them big players. They're still I think it might take Newcastle a bit longer than the other clubs, like it lasts a bit longer like it did City. It will eventually happen, but they haven't got that Champions League football to attract the Drogba, Carvalhos.
That depends on the manager and the players you bring, doesn't it? If you have Conte come in and in the summer it's like, well, we're not in the Champions League, but I'm Antonio Conte, I've got 250 million. We're going to get in the Champions League next season. You know, that will convince players to come, won't it? I think that's the situation there. But then again, that depends who the manager is, you know.
Yeah. But also money talks as well, and that, because I mean,
obviously
that's the thing. Like you think about the Chinese Super League teams, and obviously they used to have a bit of money back in the day. Like you had people like Oscar, like in their prime, going out there because it's like, well, you know, you know, pretty much that's my pension sorted, and that's my family sorted for the rest of their lives, and that. So money will talk, and obviously Newcastle now got plenty of it to throw about.
One thing I would say is, yes, money does talk, but what kind of player are you going to be getting? If you're paying somebody 350 grand a week to go and play for Newcastle, is that the kind of player you want to be signing? Especially if you've got 11 of them.
The QPR effect, couldn't you?
Exactly.
That's what with QPR. Exactly. QPR, when they had Tony Fernandez first come in, and they got like Basingwa and all these players, and people were like, man, these are some good players, and they were bottom of the league because nobody cared. Nobody cared about the club. I don't know. I think that would depend. Again, that depends, like you said, on the type of player, and just, I don't know. It's an interesting one. Everyone's fascinated, aren't they? What are you saying, Chris?
I was about to say, like when you mentioned Basingwa, I remember when they got relegated. I think there's a video of him like smiling or like smirking after they got relegated. It pretty much showed how much he cared. It's like, I'm just making a nice wage here, and I couldn't really give two hoots about this football club and that. So obviously it is a big job for whoever does come in, or Steve Bruce. You know, obviously we're just thinking this is going to be someone else. It could be Steve Bruce bringing these players in January. You never know.
Come off it, Chris. Steve Bruce ain't last until January. Not happening. Not happening. I think even he, like, you know, whilst he would want to be in a job, like I said, he's getting paid $8 million reportedly to, you know, take off. I'd be like, fine. No one likes me here anyway. You know, fine. Don't bother me. Lynchy, who do you think is going to come in for Steve Bruce? And were you surprised to see him last this long to his 1000th game?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as surprised as the boys, I don't think, about him not leaving. Just because I feel like these new owners, they're not going to rush things. They don't see, they can clearly see they got a long-term vision. I mean, was it last Thursday or Friday? I think the takeover was announced. You know, if they're trying to rush getting in a manager for the Sun game against Tottenham on Sunday, I don't think that gives the right idea towards fans if they're trying to rush getting a manager in. it was quite interesting. I thought, I mean, personally, when they announced the takeover, I didn't know that Steve Bruce was 1 game away from his 1,000th game. I feel like as the week went on, and it sort of became more and more obvious that he wasn't going to leave, then like the media started mentioning how like, oh, they're keeping him in for his 1,000th game, but that was no one mentioned that at all right at the start when the takeover was first announced. I think it's hard to call the new manager. I mean, like Leif said, I don't think there's any clear standout candidates. I just had a look. Frank Lampard's favourite, and he's 9-2. You know, that doesn't seem like, you know, he's odds on, like really clear favourite to get the job. I think it's going to be a bit like when the Abu Dhabi group came into City. I mean, you know, Mark Hughes came in, didn't he? I think throughout 12, 15 months, and then Mancini came in. I think this manager is going to be a bit of a stopgap. I mean, it's going to be quite interesting how they convince big players to then join the club, because I feel like once you get 1 or 2, then other players will start getting attracted into the club, like Man City when they got Robinho. The people said back then, didn't they? I think when Tevez came in, that sort of stated their intentions, and then more players were more interested in joining. And obviously, then when they got a big manager in Mancini in like a year after the new owners came in, that sort of laid the groundwork for the next couple of seasons, obviously winning the league 3 years later. So I feel like Newcastle will be similar in terms of finding a manager for the next 12 to 18 months, fully stabilised, trying, well, got to remember their first goal this season has got to be to stay up first, hasn't it? Like you said, they're not going to be able to sign any players until January. They could be in a dire strait in January, and the new manager who comes in could just be fighting to keep them in the league.
Imagine that. Imagine if they go down.
Big Sam in.
They won't know. They won't know. I can't
think about the parachute payments.
I hope they go down. I really do. I really do.
The thing is, if they did though, can you imagine? Now that would be like a career mode. A team that can spend like 500 million in the Championship. We're going to get Paul Pogba on a free transfer to play away at, I don't know, Cardiff or whatever, you know. It's definitely an interesting one. We'll carry on talking about the Newcastle takeover. Now, I'm hesitant to get too political, but I did see that.
Do it.
No, I'm hesitant to get too political because that's just a rabbit hole that you'll never win down. But I spoke about this in the group chat earlier today. That obviously, I don't know if you've seen these reports of like basically the other 19 Premier League clubs went to the Premier League and was like, I can't believe you let this takeover happen. It's gonna, ruin the integrity of the Premier League, or it's gonna damage the Premier League brand, all this kind of stuff. And rightfully so. I think a lot of people, even like say, because I think like United were big people pushing that to the Premier League, and the top 6 clubs were, rightfully so. Even fans of the clubs, of those top 6 clubs, have been saying, "Are you serious? Like, seriously, you're worried about the damaging of the reputation of the Premier League? You tried to destroy the Premier League like weeks ago." And I know people will say, well, that's not really what they're talking about. They're talking about other stuff. They're talking about, the questionable morality of the majority owner of Newcastle, which again is fair. And I'm not like disputing that. And I'm not saying that's not a massive issue, because it is. Obviously, it's a massive issue. The issue with that is if you go down that rabbit hole, you're also going to boycott like Disney, who have they have an agreement with Saudi Arabia. You're also going to boycott, like you were talking about, like wrestling. Wrestling go there in a couple of weeks to perform in front of a stadium. I think Starbucks have they're invested by the Saudi. The same, was it the PIF, whatever it may be. All of these big corporations around the world are happy to take this money. So if you're going to be upset with the Premier League, be upset with them as well. On top of that, we're going to talk about morality in football. Look at the owners of PSG, of Chelsea, of Man City. Look at the morality of FIFA in general. The World Cup's in Qatar next year, and arguably, reportedly, we don't know how accurate it is, but thousands of people have died building stadiums for that event. And again, all that kind of stuff. It's a case of, and that's the thing that frustrates me with these like clubs. And I think Jurgen Klopp was out today and going, it is concerning, all that kind of stuff. They're using that, in my opinion, it's like cloaked in, they're just terrified about the money. That's all they're terrified about. They're terrified about losing their spot, or if they're going to take a spot in the top 6 or the top 4, what's going to happen to us? We're not going to make as much money. And I don't know what you think about it, Chrissy. Obviously, it's a concern about where the new majority owners of Newcastle. But I mean, is it like incredibly hypocritical for clubs like, say, Man United and Man City and Chelsea to go to the Premier League and be like, I think it's going to damage the Premier League brand?
Somebody clip that little rant.
I think the funniest thing that I've seen on the internet, probably on Twitter, and that is obviously the Spider-Man meme, when obviously you have the Spider-Man sort of pointing at each other in a circle, and they've pretty much done. It's pretty much like that, isn't it? Like you got Newcastle as one Spider-Man, Man City as another, Chelsea as another, so on and so forth. In a way, I can understand the other Premier League teams' concern, because it has sort of happened a bit sort of behind closed doors, in a way that the Premier League aren't going to release what they said about it, and neither is the government what they said about it. But like you said, that you can question the morality of Manchester City's owners, you can question the morality of Abramovich at Chelsea, and that it is a difficult one. I do think it is, a lot of it comes through jealousy in that, because let's face it, obviously we've seen the figures that, what was it? These owners of Newcastle are worth like over £300 billion, and that's more than like Manchester City and PSG combined. I mean, obviously you guys know my thoughts on oil money in football. I absolutely can't stand it, and that. But it was interesting what some of the managers had to say. Obviously, I know Klopp sort of said about it, but like Thomas Tuchel in his press conference, he sort of said, "Wow, it's another challenger for the title. We just got to get used to it. We just got to." Make sure we can compete with them, and that. And obviously Chelsea will be one of the teams that will be able to compete with them, because they've already established themselves and got themselves a good squad with their sort of oil money. But it is quite funny, like just like the teams, like especially like Man City and Chelsea, like without money they wouldn't be where they are now, would they? They'd probably be like mid-table Prem. I mean, it's quite funny when like players like joined Manchester City and said, "Oh, I've always dreamed of playing for Man City and whatnot." It's like, really? So you dreamed of playing for Man City when that old boy like scored that own goal and relegated them to League? Well, it was for the third division back in those days, but equivalent of League One now. It's like you're going to get a lot of players like that with Newcastle as well. Like, "Oh, I had posters of Shearer up on my wall when I was a kid," and whatnot. I was like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't." And that, but in a way, I can understand their concern, just because it is a bit hush hush from the Premier League, and that. But they also got to look at themselves as well and say, can we really judge Newcastle?
Can we?
Can we?
Can we?
Barnes, what do you think of it? What do you think that the other clubs being concerned about? The reputation of the Premier League or the integrity of the Premier League? I mean, what are your thoughts and all of that?
Well, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I completely agree with you and Chris when you talk about the hypocrisy of these top clubs sort of saying, who literally tried to break away from the Premier League entirely, now complaining that Newcastle having loads of money will somehow affect the integrity of the league. I have to say that I think for the rest of the clubs, or most clubs, and I'm not just including the Premier League here, I'm including the whole English football pyramid, this is not great. And I know you can get into sort of a whataboutery, what about Chelsea? What about Manchester City? And there are some, fair points to be made there. But let's face it, this Saudi Arabia takeover is on pretty much another level. They are literally funded, similar to PSG and Manchester City, I suppose, by a state. I mean, they have endless money. Like Newcastle are not going to be going anywhere anytime soon in terms of once they get to the top, they won't be falling out that top four. They got endless money to spend. And I think it's worrying that someone like this can pass the fit and proper persons test and consistently do so. I know you've mentioned, Owen, it's a bit of a wild west, isn't it, when it comes to the Premier League teams and who owns them. And, we can't, if the Manchester City owners are allowed to do this, then Newcastle owners should be allowed to do this. And I can kind of understand where Newcastle fans come from on that point. But at some point, you've got to draw the line and say, we can't keep having sort of this situation, because at the end of the day, it's just going to lead to skyrocketing wages. I just feel it's problematic for the league. And I think if they don't draw the line in the sand soon, it's just going to get more and more ridiculous. And we will end up with a Super League, which the fans were so outraged about previously. And the last point, I just think it's been really depressing recently. I know you mentioned it's similar to watching Disney or whatever. It's not the same. If I watched the Newcastle fan channel when they were waving Saudi Arabia flags, like celebrating the takeover, like that's you don't do that when you order something off or you watch something off Disney Plus, or you order something off Amazon. I know it's slightly different, but you're not supporting a regime. This
you don't know how Leif watches his Disney Plus. In fairness,
that is true. That is true. Hangs a flag out the window.
Get a flag out.
I'm gonna watch a Marvel show.
Here we go.
Get a fucking flag out. Get out.
You know what I mean, though? It's completely different. I think it is once the investment comes in the city, and you'll have Newcastle fans. Oh, they're so great. They've invested in our city. Newcastle's a nice city anyway. It doesn't need loads of investment. It's really nice. Get yourself up to Newcastle. Doesn't need the Saudi money to make it, a nice place. I think it's just frustrating.
Paid you some money or so, like a tourist board or something.
Newcastle is a great night out. I can admit to that. It is a great night out.
Anyway, I just think it's sad. I think it's sad for the league, and I don't understand why the Premier League haven't made a strong statement on why they've allowed this takeover to go through. I know there's other clubs that do it, and there's a lot of whataboutery, but I just feel they should have drawn a line in the sand, or at least they should have been more transparent of why they have allowed this, because at the moment we're in the dark.
Leif, what do you think about the whole Newcastle takeover? Obviously, you haven't been on since they actually did get taken over. What are your thoughts on, like I said before, the clubs going to the Premier League, being like, why have you allowed this through? And what are your thoughts on just them passing the fit and proper persons test in the first place?
Well, I think people are right to question the integrity of these owners. So from a country, Saudi Arabia, has a despicable human rights record, and people calling for like a government inquiry where this is the same government that sells weapons to Saudi Arabia. So that's a joke to start with. But this influx of big money and questionable owners was allowed to happen when the Premier League and Sky was established in the early 90s. This isn't a new thing that's come across. So it is like Saddam Hussein calling Osama bin Laden a war criminal. Like it's very rich of these big clubs to turn the thing to, even just like Glazers haven't got a questionable human rights record, but that they can't turn around and point the finger at the big Newcastle for their investment.
No, and also as well, I suppose that again it goes back to just morality in general, doesn't it? Like, yes, you could say
morality was gone. There's no morality in Premier League football,
or just in business in general, right? I mean,
but does that mean there never can be?
No, it doesn't mean there can be.
There can
we
be.
Don't change things for the better.
Viva la revolution.
We could, but the thing is now, if you said like, okay, we've got a new fit and proper persons test in charge, we're going to be, and suddenly Newcastle don't pass it, Man City don't pass it, Chelsea don't pass it, you think they're going to get rid of all of those people? And plus, that would be the end of those free football clubs. So they would just disappear, wouldn't they? Because they're reliant on how much money is being brought. Well, it's being floated.
It's been allowed
to
to happen for so long, hasn't it? Really, like like I said, the influx of big money and questionable owners has been allowed to happen for so long that it is part of the fabric of Premier League football now. That it's
and the thing is as well, we almost romanticize it. Well, we get all the best players in the world come over here because there's so much money here.
I know.
We have the best games. We have the best match.
We do forget. So much money here. I mean, do you remember we were talking about Man United and a potential takeover from the Saudis?
Yeah,
and we were like, I mean, we could, and we quite sort of, I'd think to be morally right people at times, like to think that we're morally on the right side of the compass. If we could sign the big best players in the world, I think I might question it. I might affect my moral compass. If we sign a Messi, do I give a shit?
This is the thing. We were I spoke about this on United View, not so much with like the Saudis, but like from a United fan, I look at it and I go, man, if we had owners that invested money, we'd dominate, because we don't.
Yeah.
Like with our owners don't. All this kind of stuff. And it's if anything, it's like an issue that's way bigger than football. And for some reason, football kind of gets tied into it. And whether you could talk about, was it sport washing and all this kind of stuff, it does feel like it's a bigger issue, doesn't it, than football? And I think that's the thing that these Newcastle fans are saying. Like a lot of Newcastle fans, I've seen it on social media over the course of the last couple of weeks, have been saying, look, we're not oblivious, and we obviously don't. We're not saying that what their human rights record is acceptable, because it isn't. We're not saying that whatsoever. But again, if you think like, why should it? Like, I know what you're saying, Barnes. Like maybe there has to be a line drawn in the sand, but why should that line be drawn for us? Why wasn't that line drawn a long time ago? And if you draw the line in the sand now, are we just saying that, like I said, like the PSG thing, that's just acceptable? That they're the one-off, they're the exception to the rule. So it is a really difficult issue, I think. I mean, what do you think about it?
Oh, sorry, let's go.
No, yeah, I mean, No, go ahead, Leif. You make what you
I
say.
think these big businesses, when they're coming in and buying these football clubs, they take advantage of that partisan support for our football clubs. Like it is a culture in this country. You support your football team, that doesn't change. So I mean, no one's going to question your football team getting better. So it does exploit our sort of partisan culture within football, I think, in this country and in all the European countries.
Yeah, I mean, sort of following on from that, I mean, in terms of this, purely from an investment standpoint, I mean, it makes sense. Newcastle are a big club. I mean, the Premier League's the biggest league in the world. The amount of revenues that Premier League and TV will generate in general, I mean, it's in their interest. I mean, because obviously this public investment fund, obviously Saudi Arabia just relies on oil, so they got to diversify something, and so they thought it's probably quite a good move on their behalf, purely from an investment standpoint. But I mean, yeah, I think it's quite hypocritical from the other clubs to come out and throw shade on that after the Super League proposal. I don't know if you guys saw as well, sort of separate point in the week, how only 3 Premier League clubs apparently have responded to the police and said they're willing to work with the police to help tackle online racism. I mean, all clubs are coming, they're coming out and saying they're taking a stand against racism, and publicly they're saying that, and then when the police are offering to try and offer support and work with them, they're not actually engaging with them. I mean, it sort of links to the Newcastle case in a point where clubs are saying one thing publicly and then doing another thing behind closed doors. I mean, I think it is dodgy from the Premier League, to be honest with you, around how they're not disclosing the deal and the reasons why they thought that the owners are fit and proper. I mean, it was I found it quite a shock in general how it happened, because, I mean, I thought there was like a tribunal that was supposed to happen in January for it. I thought it was thinking being delayed, and then suddenly it's just all went ahead within like a couple of days sort of thing. I feel the Premier League needs to explain themselves, especially in an era like Leif said, where the Premier League has, when it became established in the 90s, it's just become more and more business and money focused. It does hint like I think also another lens to it is how the Premier League, obviously they want to play games abroad now, don't they? There's mentions of that, and feels like getting an overseas owner like the Saudi Public Investment Fund is also a way to just try and open up the Premier League's audience to even a more global stage, and the Middle East is one of those areas they can do it through. I mean, if the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia is invested in Newcastle, I mean, surely that's going to gain traction and interest from that area of the world, which is only in the interest of the Premier League in terms of TV revenues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. Like, and Chrissy kind of touched on it earlier, is I don't think we can almost comprehend just how much money they have. Like, it blows anything else out of the water. This is like, we're talking about amounts of money that they have that can get people to change their minds over something they were completely steadfast about. You know what I mean? When you go and like you mentioned, we want to play games. We want you to have games abroad in Saudi Arabia. And they'll be like, no way. We only have games in the UK. And if they went, we'll give you like 500 million. They'd be like, it's a lot of money. Like that's legitimately what would happen. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? But like I said, I think it's almost a discussion that's bigger than football. And they can't do anything about it now. It's done. Like they own Newcastle, and I think everyone, because again, it's like FIFA come to life. It's a curiosity factor at this point. And I don't think it's a case of people going, "Oh, they're not going to be successful," because they will. Just history proves that they will be successful, and people go, "Oh, will they sign big players?" Yes, they've got a lot of money. They've got a lot of money. They will get it right eventually, So. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but we've been going for nearly an hour already. God, it's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I know it's crazy. I was going to talk about briefly Lingard and Pogba. I don't know if we've got time now. We'll talk about Lingard and Pogba really quickly. Obviously, they're both under their contracts at the end of the season. Report come out today saying that Lingard's open to leaving. He's frustrated at United with his current position, and Pogba's being shopped around by Mino Raiola. Shock. Chrissy, quickly, do you think Lingard and Pogba, do you think either one's going to stay? Do you think they're going to leave? What do you think is going to happen with them?
I think Lingard will definitely leave, whether it be on a free transfer or whether Man U will get 15-20 million for him in January. I mean, we talked about it. He could generally go to Newcastle, Lingard. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he did. It's still up north, still close to his family, and I think he would be a good player for them. I think he would. I mean, showed what happened last year when he went to West Ham on loan, and that he was a key player for them getting into Europe, and that. So I think it'd be a good bit of business for Newcastle. In terms of Pogba, it's a difficult one because, Man U have done everything they can. It's like, wow, we've signed Ronaldo, we've signed Sancho, we've signed players to help play in and around you and that. And Pogba started off well. He started off the season well with the amount of assists he's getting. It's just, again, Mino Raiola's just relationship with Manchester United is just, no, I want to ship Paul out somewhere, whether it be back to Juventus. But it's just a case of whether these clubs be able to afford Pogba. For me, I think he'll stay. I think he will stay at Manchester United, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did leave.
Barnes, quickly, do you think Lingard and Pogba, do you think they're going to leave? Which ones, or do you think either one's going to stay?
Yeah, I think Lingard's going to leave. I'm surprised he didn't leave in the summer. Just looks like he's not going to get the opportunities in the team with the attacking talent that Manchester United have, particularly with Rashford coming back. Paul Pogba, he's a sensational player, so I like to see him play for any team as long as they're at the top of the game. So in the Champions League, I think it's quite weird how at the start of the season when Manchester United started quite well, he seemed quite keen to sign a new contract. Now they've had a few dodgy results, he suddenly seems a bit less keen. So I reckon it will depend where Manchester United sit in January. If they get some good wins in the next few weeks, I think that could be massive for Paul Pogba staying. If they get some defeats and things are looking rocky, I reckon he might look elsewhere.
Leif, United fan, do you think Lingard's going to go, and do you think Pogba's going to stay?
I think Lingard will go. I think Lingard is a solid player and deserves first team football. I don't think he's going to get United. I love Pogba. I think Pogba's superb. He gets a lot of stick, but he is on his day brilliant. But it's only so much you can put up with that fat scumbag of an agent of his. Like every game, touting him out before every big game, touting him out to big clubs. It seems to happen every time. The Champions League game before
breaks.
It does my head in. I think there's only so much you can take and not deal with Mino Raiola again, because it's an absolute.
But do United have to, if they want to get Erling Haaland next season? Do they have to play a bit of ball with him?
I don't know. It seems a lot. Well, with Haaland, is it worth it? I think it might be. But Pogba could be worth it. He's a fantastic player, and when he's not in our team, we miss him. So I hope he stays, and I hope his fat agent shuts up.
Lynchley, finally, do you think Lingard's going to go? Do you think Pogba's going to stay?
I think Lingard will definitely go if he's got any sense. I don't know why he didn't leave in the summer, like Ash said. And then you hear a couple of weeks after the transfer window, Man U offered him a new contract and he just turned it down. It just made no sense. Why didn't he just leave in the summer? West Ham they're desperate for him. They would have really wanted him in the summer. They would have taken him happily. I don't know why he didn't leave. So yeah, I think he'll definitely leave if he's got any sense in January. Pogba, I'm similar to Ash. I think these next 10 games are really crucial, not just for Ollie, but for Pogba. I think if you guys come out of the next 10 games, the hard run of fixtures, and you're looking in pretty good shape, I feel like Pogba will sort of turn his head again back to Man U and be like, things looking rosy again, I'll stay. But I think if you have a bad run, Raiola seems to be very easily able to influence Pogba, and he'll probably say something in his ear and be looking elsewhere in January, obviously be able to speak to foreign clubs. So I think these next 10 games, I think, because like you guys say about Ollie sort of pulling things out of the bag, I think you'll do okay in these next games, better than most people probably expect. So I think on that basis, Pogba will stay.
It's an interesting one, and to be honest with you, the Paul Pogba drama, pantomime, whatever it may be, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, to be honest with you. I think it's just going to drag on and on and on. And Lingard, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if he does go in January. But again, why is it taking this long? He knew that in the summer. I just don't get that. Either way, look, we've been going for nearly an hour. Fastest hour on YouTube. Just goes like that, doesn't it? How quickly is that? So if you are watching when we weren't live, be sure to smash a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I have no idea when the next stream's going to be. Probably Monday, I would think, right? Usually Mondays. It's usually Mondays and Fridays, but maybe a midweek one. Champions League's back as well, I suppose. So you never know. But if you subscribe, you won't miss a thing. Easy as that, right? Easy as that. But we'll speak with you again very soon. See you.